Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. This video is a bit of a downer. Apologize for that in advance, but something I think it's important subject to discuss with you. When I first moved here, I was living in Dulce Vita. Those of you that have followed my channel know that, up in Valencia, a nice little complex there. And I met one of my neighbors. I'm not going to mention his name. I met one of my neighbors. We got to be, kind of friends. And we'd go out for drinks. This is before I met my wife, and we'd take little trips together. As a matter of fact, we went all the way to Mindanao together, and rented a tuk-tuk and went all the way down to Pagadian. We're there, just like back in 2017. And so we knew each other pretty well, saw each other on a regular basis. I moved out of Dulce Vita, moved to Big Rock, kind of lost contact with him, and then I moved here to Bacong and hadn't seen him in a long time. Anyway, a few months ago, I was up at the Red Table in Valencia and with some friends having coffee, and Mike comes in, the guy comes in, and he sits down at our table and said, "Hey, I haven't seen you in a long time." I asked him, "How's things going, and you still doing your karaoke?" And he just looks at me with kind of a glazed over look and says, "Well, my boat, I haven't seen my boat. Do you know where my boat is? I've been looking for my boat. I can't find my boat anywhere." And I'm going, "What?" And so I quickly realized that he has, dementia and or Alzheimer's, one of the two. And we couldn't have a conversation at all. He's there listening to us and talking, but he's not relating to anything what anybody else is saying. And I talked to some friends of mine that were neighbors of his, and they said, "Yeah, it's been that way for a while with him. He's getting worse." And this girl that he had moved in with him, she'd been with him, I guess, about 2 years now. And I never met her. I've seen her, but I've never met her. And so she's living with him. And apparently it got to the point where he wasn't able to go to the ATM or go to the bank to get his money to pay his rent. And so she, I guess, had the PIN numbers or banking information or whatever. And she's going, getting the money for the rent, and she's not paying the rent. She's just keeping the money. And so they went like 3 months without paying the rent. And eventually, Dulce Vita had to tell them to move out, and they got evicted. And so they got evicted. Nobody knows where they went. A couple of people said they've seen them around town, and Mike is much worse than he was before, and she won't really give anybody any information about him. She's very vague about everything. But my point is, guys, that if you're going to come over here and you have a history of dementia or Alzheimer's in your family, know what the symptoms are. Look it up on Google it, find out. And if you start having symptoms, get yourself tested, go to a doctor, get tested. There are some drugs I've heard about where can actually slow the effects a little bit, the progression of the disease. But you can't just put your head in the sand and assume that things are going to get better, or just ignore the symptoms and slowly waste away. I've seen this firsthand. My mother had a friend whose wife came down with Alzheimer's, and she was only in her 50s. And I remember one time she had gone down the stairs in their house, opened the door to a bedroom, walked in, and somehow got behind the door as it swung open, and she couldn't figure out how to get herself out behind the door, and she started freaking out. And so you can imagine you're in another country and you've lost your mind. What are you going to do? As you know, I do some volunteer work for the embassy, and every once in a while we repatriate somebody back to America who is indigent, who's lost all their money and can't afford to get back home. And in order to do that, you have to sign a special form, and you're basically agreeing to pay the money back. If you don't pay it back, they put a hold on your passport, so you can't go anywhere until you do pay it back. But they will get you home. But the point is, somebody like this, like my friend, what good is it going to do? He doesn't have any close family back home. As far as I know, he doesn't keep in touch with anybody back there in America. He's been here for a really long time. And so you see people all the time on these different, YouTube videos, and they've got obvious, serious mental problems, but they're homeless in America, in major cities around America, all over. And they're just living on the streets, totally helpless, barely living like an animal. And nobody's helping them. And so what good would it be to send him back to America? What's going to happen to him back there? and he can't send somebody back to America even if they can't tell you in a sworn statement that's what they want. If he can't answer the questions and say, yeah, I want to go back to America, help me get back to America, and he can't even answer the question, I don't think they're even going to send him back there. And then and somebody have to travel with him the whole way. He couldn't negotiate getting on an airplane and going through customs and filling out the forms on the plane and immigration and all that stuff. There's no way he could do any of that. And so he's stuck here. He's basically stuck here. And so you have to make a plan. If you have to know if something like this happens to you, you have to face reality and say, okay, I've got Alzheimer's, I've been tested for it, I need to make a plan right now. So you need to hire somebody. First, go see a lawyer and tell them what's going on. Have somebody trusted that can get your money for you out of the bank and pay your bills for you. Hire a full-time caregiver. That's a good thing about the Philippines is you can hire a geriatric nurse who knows how to take care of Alzheimer's patients, who's trained to do that, and pay them to live with you, or at least check on you every day. Better to live with you as a live-in companion. And even if it costs you $500 to $1,000 a month, it's worth it. And then you can, at least have some dignity in your life, the last few years. But if you're just going to ignore things, it can get really bad. You're in another country. And I've seen videos of guys in Manila and Cebu, foreigners, not necessarily Americans, who have got Alzheimer's, and they're just on the street. They're homeless people on the street, and nobody's helping them, nobody's taking care of them. There's no charity that's going to pick them up, take care of them. It's like they're on their own, depending on the kindness of strangers to feed them and give them a place to sleep. And my friend ended up like that, just like that. I mean, who can take care of an Alzheimer's patient? I mean, they need so much care. It's like having a 200-pound baby. And so what's he going to do? And unfortunately for him, it's gone so far, his options are very, very limited. The longer you let it go, the less options you have, the more things you can do to sort yourself out. And it's easy to make arrangements if you know soon enough, to hire yourself a caregiver, hire yourself a nurse, get yourself an attorney, and figure something out, decide what you're going to do. Because I think for most men, myself included, I mean, nothing is more frightening than to lose your mind, to lose your dignity. And especially if you've got a wife, like I've got a wife and a child. And so, it's a huge burden on them. And so you have to keep these things in mind. A lot of the guys, we sit around and talk sometimes and death comes up. And most guys have some kind of idea how they're going to go out. Like for me, it's going to be heart trouble. I've had a bad heart for a long time, so definitely going to be heart trouble for me. Cancer doesn't run in my family. Other people, they say, well, my father died of cancer, my mother died of cancer, so that's probably how I'm going to go. And if it's dementia or Alzheimer's, you really need to start preparing. And also, if that runs in your family, like say your mother got Alzheimer's, your father got it, your brother's got it, and you're like, in your 50s, 60s, and you're thinking about moving to the Philippines, I would rethink that plan. You might be better off to just stay where you are, even if you're not happy, because you might just make a situation worse. I've seen guys come over here that didn't last a year, and their life just started falling apart because of something like this. And so that's basically it. I'm sorry, it's kind of a depressing video, but some guys just refuse to accept reality. And we're all going to go sometime. And when you get the symptoms of anything, you got to get checked out. I know guys that have died here. I can name like 5 guys that died here, all because they had something happen and they ignored it. They didn't go to the doctor. It was just an infection. It was just a sore back. It was just this. It was just that. And they let it go. And they let it go so long that by the time it was finally diagnosed, it was stage 4 cancer, or their heart's gone, or whatever it is, and it was too late to do anything. So keep it in mind. That's really all I can tell you. Like I said, I'm no expert on medical things. I can just tell you what I've seen, and it's sad to see somebody. And this was a smart guy. He had his own website. He had invented some product that he was selling and been doing for a long time. He used to own his own sailboat and sail around the world. So he was a very smart man, a very accomplished man, financially stable man, and now he's totally helpless, totally helpless. So anyway, thank you for watching. Thanks for subscribing. You want to be on the show, shoot me an email, and we'll see you next time. Bye.